I basically would have customers come in and I would have to say to them, I'm not allowed to talk to you whilst I'm doing the clippers. When we can get to the topic, fine. But it got to the point where, I just had to, and I found it really hard, to not do that.
You have to sometimes lock in when you're doing the first couple of haircuts.
100%, yeah, you do. And also, like, they've not paid for a chat. I'll probably say that a few times, this thing, to be honest, because like they've not come to hang out with you until later on, obviously, where that's pretty much the bulk of my life, which is again one of the reasons I'm so grateful. But they haven't paid for a chat, so they're coming for a haircut. Don't spend an hour and a half talking about stuff.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Mr. Barbers podcast, episode 2. I'm Orbs, this is Mark, and we are joined by Jacob Gallally today. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we've got Jacob on today. He has been cutting for around 10 years.
Yeah, coming up to 11, 12 or something.
Yeah, so at least 10 years. I wanted to get Jacob on because I've worked with him for that whole time, really. He was apprentice in my first shop. And he'd gone all the way through to managing that shop, and now he owns that shop, and now he owns multiple shops with me. So I think he's going to be a great guest to discuss all things barbering, all things Mr. Barbers, and all things in general. So let's get straight to it. And what got you into the industry in the first place, Jacob?
What got me into the industry? I think for me, I was traveling. I was traveling and I saw a fellow who was doing it, and I thought it's kind of a nice idea. I always wanted to be in a trade because I worked at Marks and Spencer's before I went traveling, and I just thought it's kind of frustrating to me that you can get paid the same amount as somebody else and you could be doing, varying degrees of quality in that job. So working for yourself is kind of, if you work hard, you get paid for it. I don't look like the sort of guy that would hang around, I'm not a builder. These hands aren't made for being a hard man. So I thought hairdressing seems like another option. And it kind of just sort of took off from there, really. I gave my CV into Mr. and another shop in town that day, same day, and basically got a reply from both of them, but it was Sam at the time, and he basically said come in and have a go. And then I think at that point, I was chucked at you basically, I think, wasn't it? And then from then on, it was a case of, if nothing else, I'm a people pleaser, and I think being in the service industry. Was just I found my niche, really.
Do you think it was like an instant love, or did it take a few? Well,
I think the problem is, Mark will tell you, I think some of the problems I had, I enjoyed, I think I always have actually, I enjoyed the service side of it more. I enjoyed the chatting side of it. I enjoyed the getting to know people. That's what kind of gives me purpose in life. And the cutting hair is obviously side, a great part of it. But I think even from early on, you were saying, as I'm doing right now, talking too much, not actually getting the job done.
I think sometimes we clashed a little bit in the early days when you were training, and
massively.
I said sometimes you need to shut up a little bit and actually you concentrate on what you're doing.
I basically would have customers come in and I would have to say to them, I'm not allowed to talk to you whilst I'm doing the clippers. When we can get to the topic, fine. But it got to the point where, I just had to, and I found it really hard, to not do that. So.
Yeah.
That was part of the problem for me, at least, was because there's two parts. Maybe we'll get into it, but like there's two parts to the job, isn't there? Really, it's the customer side of it and the actual mechanics of it. And I think I've always just preferred the service side.
You have to sometimes lock in when you're doing the first couple of haircuts.
100%, yeah, you do. And also, like, they've not paid for a chat. I'll probably say that a few times. This thing, to be honest, because like they've not come to hang out with you until later on, obviously, where that's pretty much the bulk of my life, which is again one of the reasons I'm so grateful. But they haven't paid for a chat, so they've come in for a haircut. So don't spend an hour and a half talking about stuff.
I mean, it does go hand in hand, and we will get to that. I think why you're so popular is because of that communication with the barber. But I think in the early stages, there's a lot to be taken in.
There is.
And there's a lot to be learning. And I guess sometimes you struggled with the communication side without thinking too much and getting to grips with everything else. And there's a lot. And I think me as a boss and it was new to me as well. And I've only just started cutting very early, and you were sort of become under my wing, but I almost needed I need to be under someone's wing as well, really. And I think if we look at our relationship from them early days and how even I've changed as an owner, and I think how you've changed over the years is massive, really, because I probably wouldn't get away with my certain management styles back then because I come from a military background and I used to get a lot of frustration and stuff, whereas now I'm a lot more calming, and I've got a lot more time, I think.
But I think to do that, you have to know, don't you? I mean, you were new to it. You knew a certain thing, a way to be, the whole kind of, if you're not first, you're last kind of, like sort of hardcore attitude, which I respond to. I just think that nowadays there's so much more nuance. I think when anyone starts, and again, maybe we'll get into this in a bit, but like when you go into management and getting more responsibility, you start off being, everything's so binary, isn't it? Like it's right and it's wrong. And then I think the more experience you get, the more you realize that actually that's just, life has changed, right? And I feel like you just came in hard being like, this is how you should be. I would leave days thinking like, I'm going to get fired today. That I used to genuinely. And now the idea, and I love that for that. I'm very grateful for that. But
I think that's molded you.
Sorry?
I think that's molded you. In
a way, I suppose. But then what to put it to nowadays perspective though, if I had an apprentice that left the shop thinking I might get fired tomorrow, I'd be a bit like, I'm too empathetic, where I think I responded really well to that whole kind of like, get on and crack on.
I think we've all been there, but
I think you need it though.
Pressure makes diamonds.
Well,
Mark always says pressure's privilege.
You're right, absolutely right.
Sometimes it's good to go away feeling a little bit stressed.
And I think I've always been that if I'm putting pressure on you, and I think if someone, not just me, if someone is putting pressure on you, I think sometimes we look at that wrong. It's because we actually really care.
100%.
So like I actually really, want people to get the results. And so times when you're feeling that pressure, it's because wherever it's coming from, that's the goal that we want to achieve,
I remember when in the early days when I was when I first started, I was, you're at the bottom of the barrel. There's everyone, but they used to say, it rolls downhill. Can we swear?
Yeah, shit rolls downhill.
And so it's a bit like, okay, well, I'm at the bottom. And then I remember I got bullied. I'd say it's bullying, call it what you want. I got teased to such an extent. I was sitting there thinking like, I'm making you coffee, I'm buying you lunch, and you're still like, I remember one of the guys, Cookie, like used to like put hot sauce in my coffee. And I knew that he's doing it because it's fucking like you'd see the flakes. Like he's not smart.
We should say to us, I think she missed I think you got into the industry as it's like, this is probably like say 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a lot more banter, and I think in work in general, in the workplaces, probably on building sites and in loads of industries, you could probably do and act differently to what you can now.
100%.
And so like you say, there used to be loads of pranks all the time. It would be a lot more relaxed. Now everything is probably too serious.
In a way, yeah. And I think unfortunately, like, although I'd say like there'll be times I'm sitting there thinking like, do they even like me? Like why am I being bullied? Well, because I came from a set of friends who were all kind of really nice to each other. So the idea that like he was making me, and I'd be like, I know you put hot sauce in it. He's like, go on, drink it. I haven't. And it's like, And then at one point, one of the other guys, I think I must have had a face on me, and he pulled me over and he was just like, what's the matter? And he said, I was like, oh, it's shit nice. And he goes, if I completely ignored your existence, that's the worst thing that happened. To your point, like the fact that we tease you is because you're part of a family. We like that.
It's like the younger brother, maybe.
It felt like hazing in the sense that the military used to, it's almost like conditioning a little bit. And I responded that well, and that doesn't happen anymore.
We've got work experience boys in. Just turned 15. The other day, one of the boys who works in the asked him to go find his left-handed guards.
Right.
And
exactly.
went on for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I remember loads of stories like that.
Yeah. But it's that sort of stuff. It's standard practice.
So I remember
you'd get screwed.
I remember when I was an apprentice, Cole sent me over to the shop over the road and asked for a long wait. And I was so naive, I didn't actually understand. So I literally went there and said, "Excuse me, do you sell long waits?"
And they normally get it.
And all these sort of things. And that's something. I mean, there's good and bad points to it. You can't act like that now and say certain things. Well, you could probably do that one, but there's probably some times where things might go too far, or I just think people are a lot more sensitive now.
Sometimes.
But the barber industry was more that culture back then.
I think you're right, and I'm sure it applies to every trade. I'm sure you got builders and fuckers and all sorts doing the same thing. But I think that society's changed, and I think that like where I had an upbringing where people were, it was a lot more kind of I won't call it bullying, but whatever we're calling it. Whereas nowadays,
people are all bullying each other.
Whereas nowadays, like I said, I always was a bit more like, oh, I don't want to raise. It's a little bit like parents as well. Like if there's ways that maybe your parents raised you, but like I don't really, I'm going to do it a bit differently because I didn't like that. And so I feel like it's just this pendulous. It's constantly throughout history. It's just going more left, more right, more left, because there's never a perfect thing, is there? So I've now learned, after being a bit of a soft boss at the beginning, that we're discussing this in the car. Like for the next apprentice, the next kind of going forward, there's going to be a lot more rigidity and kind of a lot more. I was too relying on the fact that I will teach you how to cut hair, but I'm just assuming that you're going to want to run with it. Do you know what I mean? Like I will teach you how to throw a ball, but you're gonna crack on yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And I've now learned that it's a bit trickier you don't always find those weeks.
Yeah, that took me because we've had like multiple different apprentices in the shop now. And I've had to learn that not everyone wants to do what I want to do.
No, exactly. And it's like, and you just assume that, and it's naivety as well. And you said it previously when you first started, but like, there's that naivety to be like, well, everyone surely wants to work as hard as me, right? And that's what bothered me. When I first became a manager, I'd be like, why are you 5 minutes late? Why are you leaving early? Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But then I realized it's not about that. Like, and you kind of mentioned it, like man management, as opposed to one rule for everyone.
Also, everyone's different. Like the teenagers are different nowadays.
But everyone's different. And I think that you're right.
No one wants to work.
Because you're self-employed, there's that element. It's really, we exist in that kind of weird area where it's like, I do say I work for Mr. because we do, I mean, we do, but technically the staff are self-employed, but it's never felt like that. It's felt like a team. It feels like we all
That's
work
how it should be,
for a company, when actually technically it is, it's considered self-employment. So yeah. I like the fact that it's a team and it's a shop thing, but I just feel as though that used to be the old rule, wasn't it? Like if you left early, well, you're just not going to make any money. I'm going to make more money because you're not here. Whereas I just don't think there's that same oomph nowadays.
And we have got some questions lined up. That's why you see me checking my iPad. And one of the early ones, which we've already been talking about anyway, is how you think the industry has changed over the last 10 years. And we have sort of been talking about that. But let's maybe focus on just in general, how trends maybe, or like we spoke, there has been a big difference over that time. Do you think barbering's getting better?
I would say that. I think that even though like it makes it sound as though barbering hasn't existed for literally thousands of years, right? But I would even argue in my own experience, let's say 10 years, that when it first started, at least in my experience, it wasn't like you oil shavers didn't exist for a start, did they? So like you do cutthroat fade if you're going to do a skin fade, or you would just do. I remember Sam taught me like half is a skin fade, like that is a skin fade,
and then it just started going down and down,
and it's therefore it gets harder, right? Which is not a bad thing, because obviously at the end of the day, I'm proud, or we should all be proud to be in a situation where we can get better. But trends changed. I remember I'm 33, and I remember going into the barbershop, or hairdressers really. I think barbershops, the idea of a young person going into a barbershop is something that I think has become more ordinary regular than it did 10, 15 years ago. So fades have got a bit more important. There's more competition as well. So I feel as though you've got to do a better job now to compete with this person. But even I would say recently it's become even more like, I don't do all the kind of pencil stuff that you see, or like the sprays, like all that kind of what I would consider to be more sort of like Instagram, more sort of photogenic kind of stuff. I would prefer like more of a everyday kind of thing. But I'd say there's just so much more competition in the short answer. I would say that, and the other side of it as well, the services now, because there's more competition, your service has to be better. If we face it, like a haircut's a haircut. Yeah. Obviously you can get some sort of absolute worldy kind of 10 out of 10 kind of whatever movie shoot type thing, but a haircut's a haircut. It's not rocket science. So now you've got to offer something else as well as that. You've got to offer a nice environment. You've got to offer, friendly banter and all that stuff, because otherwise they'll just cut the road somewhere else. So I do think it's got more difficult in that sense.
And also, like, touching on social media, a lot of barbers that are big on social media are American barbers, which cut so much different to UK barbers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of UK barbers don't know how to give what's expected nowadays, to especially like teenagers.
Yeah.
Like, we have a lot of customers coming in that aren't getting that like TikTok style haircut, that have come into the Mr. Barber's Sudbury shop because they know that that's what we can provide, because we're not being ageist, but because we're younger.
Yeah.
That's how we cut.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same experience, isn't it? I think that's why you find I've got loads of we have a lot of African American customers come to the shop, and they'll often say, they feel like it's a bit of a gamble going to a white barbershop, because it's like, I feel like they're more comfortable. You'd feel naturally more comfortable with somebody that has a similar experience to yourself, and so the same applies to younger people. They're going to want to go somewhere that feels like there's a younger clientele, and we're younger people. So
we talk different, and we know what's going on in the world and the trends and stuff. So they you can chat to me about Roblox.
Yeah.
So,
but it is. I'll say it's kind of annoying though, because we now live in an age where somebody could sit down and say, "I want a texture disconnected drop fade" or something like that, and they actually don't know what that means. They've heard that, or they've seen a hashtag or something, and you go, "All right, then I'll do that." And at the end of it, I had it recently, probably a year ago now. It wasn't me, it was another barber, but he has the haircut that he wants. He leaves, and then the mum calls up and says, "What have you done to my son?" And she's really upset about this. And all my staff member could do is just say, "Well, look, that's what he asked for."
Yeah.
So
supervision.
Yeah, and it was a bit of an annoying haircut, but he went in thinking of one thing, and then it didn't look like what he thought.
No.
But that's just how things have changed.
Someone come in the other day and was like, "Oh, I want a textured something." It's like, "You mean textured fringe?" It's like, "Yeah, whatever that means." And I'm like, "You don't even know what you're talking about."
No.
Show me.
Well, someone says, "Oh, can I have a skin fade?" Oh, but like a 1 skin fade. It's like,
yeah, can I get a fade from a 3 to a 4? And I'm like, okay.
So again, like something that used to be quite embarrassing. I don't know what you were like. I actually don't know what it's like for women as well. But like, I used to be really embarrassed about bringing in a picture as a kid. You know, you cut a magazine or something. And you get the same impression now, where some people do feel a bit like embarrassed about a picture of Tom Hardy generally, or Jake Gyllenhaal. But and they show you, and it's like, oh, that's amazing. Like that's perfect because I know what I've got to do now.
Yeah.
If you say to me, I want a high fade, well, my high versus your high might be quite different. So.
The ones I find it a bit funny, I shouldn't really dig out, but I kind of am, is though when a grown man, just to me personally, when a grown man will come in and, you know, show a picture, because I've had this happen before, and he'll show a picture of, he'll say, "Oh yeah, my wife wants me, you know, my haircut to look like that." And first of all, I think, it's your hair, mate.
Yeah.
But and then I you know, the pictures of this sort of 25-year-old Italian model guy, and he's a 45-year-old, and I'm thinking, mate, she wants him, not the haircut. Yeah. And I'm not a magician, you know, like, and I just think, come on. But yeah, so there's levels to that. Sometimes I think what I'm sad is people will show you this picture, and you think, well, it looks good because he's got the certain type of hair, you know, the certain skin tone, but not everyone can have that haircut and it's going to look like that, which is another thing we deal with at times, right?
Do you think that's because of the competition, if we're still on the subject of how things have changed, if there's so much competition nowadays, do you think we're more reluctant to say, no, I can't do that?
Yeah, we'd still do it, but I think it's important that you explain to the customer that, okay, we can do this, we can create this haircut, but that, you know, because of the way your hair sits, it's not going to look, you know, like this, because half the time it might even be photocropped or whatever they do now, and in Photoshop. Vlogs.
I remember, before I became an apprentice at Mister, I did one of those hairdressing barber courses in London, right? You know, I think £3,500 for about a couple of weeks. It's an absolute piss take, but it was in London, right? And it was a working barbershop, so you just have people walk in for free haircuts. And this Asian guy came in, one Southeast Asian fella, and he didn't speak much English, but he showed me a picture of LeBron James, and he said that's what he wanted. Obviously, he had at this point, but he did like this kind of tight little afro thing. And I should have said, you can't have that. Or like, it's not going to work. But instead of doing that, because I thought I just was new, I tried to do the best I could. And it ended up looking like some sort of weird kind of microphone thing. This guy I think he was Chinese. And so it didn't look right.
Didn't look like LeBron James.
Didn't look like LeBron James. And so at the end, and I showed him the mirror, and he kind of just like nodded and he left. And my boss, I suppose, came over and was just like, what was that? And I said, like, and I was like, well, it's what he asked for. And he was like, the lesson you should have learned there is, no, sir, you can't have that. But
that's where
this is something in the industry, and I'm talking about not with people, but the whole industry of barbering, the whole barbering industry. No one is actually telling the truth. No one is being honest.
It can be hard.
So I think people aren't blunt and upfront as much as they should be nowadays. People are too scared to hurt feelings.
So do you think that's because of the lack of confrontation, or do you think that's just because, you know, if I say no, then you're going to go somewhere else? So it's hard to tell. I feel like we're becoming less confrontational.
And I think people don't like having the tough, although that shouldn't be a tough conversation, but having someone in your chair that you have to sort of, you know, you want to please, and you sort of tell them that it's not really going to work. Yeah. It's sometimes easier to not say that and just do it.
Absolutely.
But you so much should have at the start of actually being honest. So
at the end of the day, as I said, it's a service industry. I want to do what you want me to do. So I should be able to say, you can't have that.
If a mum comes in with a 3-year-old child with like bright light blonde hair and says he wants a skin fade, no, you should have like a 2 or a 3.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
You have to be upfront. Oh, this could be better, but it's the way you say it, not what you're saying. Oh, this could actually be better. Should we try this first? Yeah. And if they say no, then you've done your part, and that means there's no guilt after the haircut if they don't like it.
Yeah. And what I've done in them situations is maybe say, well, let's go for a 2. And then if he, you know, because I don't know if he's going to sit still, what it's going to be like. And then maybe next time we'll go down to a 1, you know, and bring it down rather than going straight in with a skin fade and they're going crazy. And now you've left with half a haircut and it's just an absolute nightmare.
Health and safety issue.
You know? So yeah. Getting back to social media, because it's one of the reasons why I was excited to get Jacob on. In fact, with both Orbs and Jacob's, a really good example, because Orbs is someone that is very good on social media. She's building a very good following. and she's successful in her own right in barbering. Jacob, on the other hand, is super successful in barbering. You know, I've never seen, and I might be wrong, but I've never seen a space in your diary ever. You know, I think, and I'm not exaggerating. I think if you opened your books up till Christmas, they'd all be full.
Yeah, I think I've got my honeymoon in November, and I've had to try and cancel bookings.
And zero social media. Like, or maybe the odd one when I say, hey, maybe you should post something, and then you post it just to
absolutely no.
But,
if you look at my social media,
you've built up and what I love about that is because, like in anything, to become successful, there's more than one way to become successful. So me personally, I think if you want to create a brand, like, as in a personal brand, and this is the whole reason we're on social media now, because we want to create the Mr. brand. You know, social is very important, but it's not every way. You know, you can be successful in other ways, and especially in barbering. I personally think that the younger barbers coming through are spending too much time worrying about looking good on social media before they can actually cut hair. Because they think, if I can look good on socials, then I'm going to be really successful. And they work hand in hand, but I think we want to do the sexy stuff. So they want to do the phase because it looks good on socials, but they can't actually cut the top of hair. And that bugs me a little bit. But also, even if you don't do no social media, you can still be super successful because I believe the fundamentals of barbering is the customer service. And that's something that, you know, if I had to go and tell anyone, go and see someone to see customer service, I'd send them to you.
I'm proud of it, but I think that you're absolutely right. I think that I would never say that social media isn't a good idea because it's free advertising. It's just ridiculous. It's such a great way to build a brand. And I would say certainly to my apprentices and stuff like that, like, you need to have a presence because, like, I'll say it several times, probably competition. There's so much competition nowadays that you have to somehow get yourself out there. That being said, I probably did do that. Certainly in the early stages, you have to, and we all have done the same thing. You have to post on Facebook and that stuff. But then once you get I've still got customers now that I was cutting for free 12 when it was 11, 12 years ago. So I think that the retention element, you don't need to social media if you've got 10 out of 10 customers.
If no one's leaving you, you don't need to go because you don't. There's no need for you to post unless you want to build your personal brand because they couldn't get a haircut anyway. New customers.
Exactly. So I feel as though if you're a new person and if you're sat down during a work day and you're not eating or whatever, post. Like, do a post. Like, you're not doing anything. You might as well say, had some cancellations over. I don't have the time to do that. And that's how it's developed over the decade or whatever, of just like, I don't have time to post, so therefore I don't. And for me, it's about the person. I'm so grateful. There's so much to be grateful for in my life. But in the job, 99% of my customers are friends. So you pick up a conversation from last time. You're gonna, you ask how the holiday was, how's the missus, that sort of stuff. It becomes, it's not really a job, really. And that's why I'm so grateful, because it's just.
But they weren't friends. Well, no, some of them was, but what are you saying that there were customers that become friends?
Yeah. They were not. I got it.
I was going to say,
No. They are people who you have met for the first time at some point, and you've just been able to get back with them. And I feel as though if you do, it's simple stuff. It's not hard. Like, it's like, I don't want this to come across. What we do is not rocket science. But the idea of people skills is how I kind of always thought that was going to be where my success was going to come from. I didn't go to university, and for me, I did a little bit of traveling, but it was mainly working in retail. And I just sort of felt that the most valuable skills somebody can learn in life is how to talk to a person.
Well, we have that in common because my first ever job was, javelin in Bury. It was in Sudbury.
Oh yeah.
So I started out working in retail for like a few months, and then I had so much fun actually talking to the customers.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I actually want to be here. I want to talk to people as part of my living.
100%.
Do you like in the morning check your schedule and look forward to seeing certain clients?
I do, yeah. I think it's something. It's standard, and that's something that blows my mind. We've got not to I won't chuck their names under the bus, but like, I am obsessed. Well, not obsessed. I look at my thing all the time, my diary or the schedule. So some people, when I see that they don't know who's next, and I'm like, oh, I know who's next week. Just because it's just a thing I don't, because, and again, I'll say this, because it's not that I don't post on social media. I don't go on social media. So where other people maybe might see on TikTok or Instagram, I'm just basically looking at my schedule, just kind of sort of figuring out how the day looks in your head.
It is impressive, because one thing that I find impressive from you, which we talk about a lot, and this again shows why success, there's so many ways to be successful, because I'm different to Jacob, and I've had success in my own right, and it's different to Jacob's success. But when we're talking about looking at your diary, so I find it amazing, and I would love to be able to, and it's only probably laziness from myself. I blame it a little bit on intelligence. I'm not overly intelligent. That you know every customer. It seems like before that you know everyone's name, even my customers.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, have you got? And I'm like, yeah. And you say, oh yeah, you're cutting Tom's hair, for instance. And I was like, what one's that again, mate?
Yeah.
And you'll tell me. But I think you know every single one of your customers by name,
and by history
like
and all sorts.
all that, and
but
that is part of the
right?
customer retention and all the rest of it. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why you've grown a strong thing, because it shows that you care about the individual, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's like
not just the haircut.
But there's unfortunately there's no like, oh well, here's the secret to that. I think that's just a personality trait, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because some people might be, nowadays younger people do tend to, mate is a lot more mate, bro, stuff like that. So they don't say the name. So the idea of just saying, John, how you doing, or whatever, I think mate goes a long way. I'm sure there's some psychology there. Like when you think about pub like bar people and stuff like that, if they know your name immediately, you want to go out there because it kind of there's that connection. So. And the familiarity, yeah. So I do think that that's one of the big parts of it. But just really look at your diary. Do you know what I mean? I know that like the thing is you've got so much on, you've got so many fingers and so many pies that like if my focus is that day at least is on work, then I think that that's where it does. But the downside is obviously you do then burn out. You burn the candle both ends. So on the one hand, you're I'm trying to remember all of my customers' information. I'll come home and Becca will say, "Oh, do you remember this thing we're doing?" And gone, and I'm like, but you can't. I'm not choosing to remember this.
You can't overload your brain with everything.
Single. So like, it's got its pros and cons, but I think that that's one of the reasons I love my job so much, is because it's not really work.
Okay, because you said pros and cons, so let's look at some cons and challenges. Is cons actually a word?
Yeah.
And so some challenges then as you've transitioned, because we're really open and honest on this podcast about how we are great and also the things that we're struggling with.
Yeah, 100%.
And so obviously there's struggles from becoming from an apprentice to a barber to a manager and now a shop owner, and now we own two shops together, don't we? So how have you found that transition? The pros and cons of it all?
I think that to very briefly do from square one. See, it's quite tricky when you go from apprentice to being a barber, because so many people are used to seeing you hold the broom and they sort of think like, I don't want to go. That guy was speaking here last week. So like you have to put yourself out there. I wouldn't recommend anyone do this job who's shy, because you do need to sell yourself. Like any self-employed industry, you need to be able to give, like a reason for that person to get your chair. But if you then fast forward up from, which is probably more interesting, from sort of like either barber to manager or manager to owner, it's still the same kind of shift of responsibility in a way. And I think it's hard because my primary passion is genuinely the customer, and it is that relationship and that kind of connection that you have with that individual. So when you've now got to take away, let's say before I had 10 customers, I have to take away 2 at least, 3, just so I can then have time to see the bigger picture and see the shop and stock and stuff. And like I said, it's not a terribly difficult thing to do, but you do need to you used to have one eye on the business as well as the thing. And we discussed this years ago. Like I went through a weird phase. I can't remember if it was before or after COVID, but like I felt as though if I wasn't working all the time, that the shop was going to somehow fail for some reason. And so I was like, I'd come in early, I'd stay late. I burnt out, basically, is what happened. And you saw it, and you were saying, this is stupid. And I genuinely was just like, how is this stupid? Like, I'm working really hard. Like, surely this is the right answer. And I was so confident. And then I realized that, like, in doing that, I actually wasn't focusing on every other member of staff. I wasn't checking to see if they were happy. I wasn't keeping an eye on the reviews or anything like that. So I wasn't being a good manager or a good owner. I didn't have that responsibility. I didn't think about it that way. So that was probably the biggest transition for me, was that going from like doing anything for anyone, as long as I'm stood behind you, and going from that to actually what I need to do is look after my staff now instead of the customer, because that's the most important thing.
And I see that all the time. That's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit on here, is going from a barber to a shop owner. And even if you go off and people that open their own shops, they get to this point when they struggle. Not everyone, of course, but I think a lot of people do, because it becomes, they're still in their barber mindset, which we've really, if we're honest, we've really battled with you with that, haven't we, over the last few years to get that out, because you're so good at being a barber and a popular barber to actually take a step back from that and actually understand that actually now there's other responsibilities that we have to think about and have to do. And we see it, I see it in many people that open an individual barbershop and they think, to be successful, I have to be really busy, but you can't outcut a team. That's something we talk about all the time. So some people think, oh, it's been a quiet, you know, I want to get my shop really busy. And of course you have to work really hard at that. But until you can learn how to build a team, build the people around you, you know, the barbershop with 4 even average barbers as a business is still going to beat the barbershop with 1 amazing barber all day long. So it comes with its own challenges and the transition of it. And that's sometimes hard to transition to go through, because you almost feel like you're letting maybe some of your customers down. Because you just haven't got the time to do everything. And then especially if you want a second shop, the biggest thing that I think Mr. and being part of a brand and franchise, what I think helps people is to understand we have to work on the business and not always just in the business. And that's a really tough one for the new shop owner to understand. You know, there's 2 things to it now. We can't, if we always just got our head in the customer, then sometimes we can lose sight of growing the business.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, that is one of the transitions, and you've seen that from every side now.
I think it's kind of like I'd say you're one of those kind of freaks of nature, in the sense that you've kind of like, I think you always kind of sort of had aspirations to sort of be more entrepreneurial than like, I'm just, everything I'm proud of in my life, I'd say within reason, is probably as a result of somebody else telling me to do it or encouraging me to do it. Because either I didn't, you know, I always think it's one of my greatest strengths and weaknesses is being a people pleaser. You know, I can make so many examples. The marathon, for example, I did a marathon last year before, and I was like, I'll do half this year, and then maybe next year I'll do a full. And you were just like, do a full now. I do, you know, like do it now. And so and I didn't want to do it, but I did it, and it's something I'm really proud of. So the idea of when I got put up to manager, and then when I got put up to owner, 100% it's something I wanted. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. But like at the same rate, people need to get into that position because they're ready for it, as opposed to almost like, you know, don't take on something that you're not fully in love with, because otherwise it will be really tricky for you. And I'm very grateful. I said this to you earlier, like having someone like Mark in your life is amazing because it keeps you accountable. But I imagine that if people don't have those sorts of people in your life, those sorts of influences, it can be difficult to progress. And then that's when you stagnate, and that's when you go fall apart. So
probably a bit personal, but do you find that this whole like people pleasing sort of mindset sometimes affects your relationship with customers, or like your boundaries? Do you feel like you've got past that? Because I felt like that last year, and it really stunted me for a good few months.
It is difficult, isn't it? Because obviously, like at the end of the day, like I've already said, like that I consider so many of my customers to be friends, and they are, but they are also customers, and that's what you said as well. Like there is nothing I wouldn't do for anyone, but the trouble is that that's not. It's kind of like an indiscriminate amount of. Let's say I've got 10 energy bars, whatever, from the day. And I'll give 8 of those to 8, like, not strangers, but like people, you're right, mate, can you come in early? Or you're right, mate, you got any space at the end of the day? And absolutely not a problem. And then once you've spent those, I then go home, and obviously Becca, who should be getting the most of those, is my partner. You know, sometimes I'll be a little bit like, I haven't got any energy for this. And quite understandably, she's never been upset about it or anything, but like, she would be right if she was, and same for you as well, because obviously 2 of the most important, you know, people be your business partner, your partner stuff. And if Mark's asked me to do something, or if there's something that needs to be looked at, and I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm burnt out today because I was in at 7:30 or 6, like seeing matey boy who, you know, yes, he might be a friend, but you do need to prioritize who gets your time and how you spend that. And I think that can be really difficult if you're a people pleaser in the service industry, because you just say, I'll help anyone, and it just be the person who gets there first.
My dad taught me that there's 3 or 4 sectors of your life that you should be keeping separate. So you've got work, your recreational activities, which could be friends or going out, your family, and then your partner or boyfriend, whatever. And rarely you should be, you know, if I have an argument with my boyfriend, it shouldn't be being dragged into work. Or if I, you know, I've been out drinking, for example, that shouldn't be affecting work. Like, you should try your best to keep all these things separate.
Well, you're absolutely right. And yeah, sorry. So if you're coming from that angle, in the sense of how does being a people pleaser affect, or how does your personal life affect your working life? From that sense, you're absolutely right. I've just had 10 years to make friends. So if I am a bit off, or if I am a bit kind of, like you say, if we've, I don't think I bring much into it. Although you've seen previous, I have definitely, you could tell I'm upset Not so much now. I think it was probably a couple of years ago. Like I would come in with a bit of a face on me, but
Oh yeah, we
I feel as though like customers, and if the ones are certainly the ones I'm sort of closer to, the key, if I had to give any success or the key to any sort of form of success when it comes to like personal skills, if you're vulnerable, they are more likely to be vulnerable with you. So if I did come and say, I have to tell you what, had a bit.
So they know,
Like,
because I find that, so I've been cutting I've been in the shop since I was 16 and I'm 20 now. My customers have known me since I was like that young, bubbly apprentice, girly girl. But obviously as I've gotten older, there's different emotions and things. So I feel sometimes it's hard to keep up. It's almost like a facade of like that bubbly girl they've always known, because I'm not always feeling like that.
It is
and
hard,
they
man. It is hard.
instantly, as soon as I sit down, they know there's a difference.
That's the trouble. If you want to be a 10 out of 10 in terms of like energy levels, that's brilliant. But as soon as you're an 8 out of 10, they always go, well, mate, what's the matter? And it's just like, look,
I don't want to tell you, and I shouldn't be.
You're just getting a haircut today. Like you're not getting the haircut and the, and the chat.
And the banter.
And what comes from that is, I don't want it to go to self-development. Podcast, but anyone who knows me I love self-development and all that kind of thing. So is the ability to say no, and something that I know I want at you about a lot, and I can imagine Orbs, you're the same with it. But I think as barbers, that friendship line probably comes too soon. As in, what I'm saying is, I think unless they are a very good friend, people shouldn't be texting barbers for a haircut. To me, it's like your booking system is your time, and then the rest of your time is allocated to your family or your missus or your partner or your boyfriend. And what I think the lines get blurred too much is because when we do please too much, or we're bad at saying no. I know your phone probably goes off all the time from customer. Oh mate, can you squeeze me in at the end of the day? Can you? And then because you want to please and you say yes, yes, and then you're just pissed off. And then I will speak to you and you think, what's Jay got you on for? And but it's because you said yes. When one of the best things we can do in life is the ability to say no.
Selfish.
And it's not even being selfish. It's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite of being selfish, because I can't be the best Mark if I'm giving my energy to too many other things. So if I don't want to come in at 6 o'clock at night and cut someone's hair, I value that 6 p.m. from something else. I'm doing something else. So by saying no, I'm actually it's not being selfish, because I'm using that time on someone else. Maybe it's my kids' football, whereas if I go and please that customer, now I'm pissed off with my boys or whatever, because I want to please and say yes. And that's a hard skill. That gets easier. But the more you can actually say no and actually set your schedule. You set your schedule on the booking system. That's your schedule, to me personally.
Also, if someone messages me now saying, can I have a haircut? And I say, right, I'm just doing a podcast, I'll get back to you. If they're waiting, they're going to be waiting for hours, because I'm going to forget, because I'm busy on my day off. And they're not going to get a haircut.
Well, you're right.
I don't have time to fit you in.
I think it was something that you told me, actually. I can't remember. There was a few years ago I had a bit of a problem with me. I had a customer that I thought we were really I thought we had a really good relationship, but he just, you saw him in another barbershop, you saw him pictures being like, well, mate, your boy's gone down the road, hasn't he? And I remember being a bit like, oh, fucking hell. Like, you think you're really close to somebody, and then you realise, obviously, I'm not. That's a person in particular, but like in generally speaking, I have got a lot of customers who are actually really good friends of mine. But you said, didn't you? Like, if you can't go there today and they go somewhere else, what are you stressing about? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the retention isn't a big deal if they can't get their haircut today and they're having to go to the barbershop, then.
And if you want to develop in life and become owners and managers and business and do lots of other things, you can't be scared to go backwards a little bit. Like, you can't be scared to lose customers to move forward. Yeah, well, because you're doing bigger and better. Say you're on this podcast, doing the podcast now, which might open up doors to other things. So if you've lost 2% of custom, because there's sometimes when you're taking out your diary, but you're gaining this end, then I think people are too afraid sometimes to lose. As long as we're always moving forward, unfortunately, as we move forward, customers and people are going to drop off. Otherwise, we stay the same still, right? Oh, absolutely. So we shouldn't worry about it too much, because there's always going to be that next customer. Again, it just comes to wanting to over deliver and please, and that customer, really, sometimes they don't care. They're actually being rude. Yeah. Because they want you when they want you at that certain time and all the rest of it.
This is where you say obviously you get quite friendly with customers. I'm a bit more careful just because I'm a girl. I'm working with men. But I've been out in groups with some of my customers there, and we've gone for a drink and had a good laugh. The other day I had one of my friends / customers, and he was really late, so I turned him away. I said, I haven't got time now, I'm sorry, I can't fit you in. didn't say, oh, I'm so sorry, didn't like apologise and nothing, just kind of shrugged his shoulders, rolled his eyes and walked away.
Wow.
And that's someone that I considered quite friendly as a customer. You know, you've built up years of cutting their hair. And as soon as they get told no, or as soon as something flips,
as soon as it's not
suddenly it's like, and now I know the line, there is still that line there. You know, unless you've been cutting your friend's hair for years. Like but I think there is still a line there. With your clientele.
And that line is professionalism, isn't it? Like, it's the idea you have to be professional.
I think that comes with being a female barber. Because, like, I never want to get too friendly.
No, it must be really difficult. I can't speak towards that level of challenge.
I think that's, and I think that's a good one for a podcast. It'd be quite interesting, not today, but we've got some amazing female barbers, and it'd be good to get some of the females on, because it's different. I guess there is slightly different challenges that come with being a female in a male dominated industry.
You're gonna get all the gossip, Mark.
Yeah, so it'll be quite an interesting one. A couple of last questions for you for today from me is, Mr. We should talk about Mr. a little bit more, as it's the Mr. Barbers podcast.
Yeah.
So you've been at Mr. obviously from the start, but you could leave at any point. You know, you could have left at any point. You could have done your own thing. You're a super successful barber. You was before you become a manager and an owner. So what was the draws of staying within the brand, as opposed to, I mean, let's be honest, if you went and opened up a shop down the road as Jacob's Barbers, you would be still fully booked. So what kept you wanting to progress with the brand?
I think the boring answer and the honest answer, I think, is the people. Because obviously that's you couldn't, I don't think you can get joy out of something if you don't enjoy the people you do it with. I think you'd have to be quite a strange person it's such a sociable job that if you hated everyone, or if you didn't have the right character for it, you're just not going to survive. But for me, in particular, with the Mr. brand, I think that I was lucky enough to be there. I like to describe it as I was on the sort of the last page of the first chapter of the book, if you like, of Mr. So I knew some of the people that would then go on to be big shop owners. I kind of had that connection. And obviously the Christmas party obviously isn't the reason I stayed with the brand, but it's a great, like, it does feel like a family party. It feels like you see uncle, whatever his name is, that you haven't seen all year, or cousin, whatever. So first and foremost, but like, it is the people. But it is the people. The people, because that's the only difference, really. You've got people, you know, those certain people that are there, all of those people. The other thing would be, obviously, and this is again kind of a no-brainer, is that being a part of one little independent shop is fine, and you can do that. But if you want the opportunity to grow and to build and to develop, then I think being in a situation like Mr. where they are open to the conversation. Like, if I said I wanted to open up over here, like, I know I can message Carl straight away, and look, even yourself as well. So the idea that you can have those conversations is great. We work with some incredible people that don't get anywhere near enough attention. You know, like both Carl and Paul, and obviously yourself. Like, we're so grateful. People should be grateful of how much work gets done, because it's really not an easy job to do all the shit work. Do you know what I mean? All the behind the scenes stuff. So that's another thing. Having a great team around you is fantastic. And I just think also just the idea that the system worked. I mean, there's been so many different iterations of it, isn't there? Like of education, like bringing the college students into a shop. There's been so many different versions of that, and I'm not really sure if we've cracked it. I don't know if we're going to carry on with. I don't know how it's doing, but it just felt like a great place to be. It felt like there was some sort of energy. You know what I mean? Some sort of like, this is going to be pretty big. And I think that it not saying that it's stagnated. I'm not saying it's not. I'm thinking just as a concept, it works really well, and it's going. It feels like at a nice pace, and it's something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I think hopefully, if I summarise your thoughts on it a little bit, I think it helps create so you can still, you're free to, we're very relaxed on how you can go and express yourself still.
Yeah.
We can help provide the platform, right? Yeah. For you to then. We've gone and done stage work and that. And of course you can go and do that by yourself. Yeah. But through connections, through being in a team, through, the bigger the team, the bigger the thing, the more opportunities there is for everyone. Yeah, right. And I'm big on that. And maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I've seen people come and go all the time. And one thing that I always notice, I hear, do this, and I'm all pro for that. I love entrepreneurism and I love people doing their own thing, but they all think they're going to go and do this thing, and they stall, they get their one at the shop or whatever, and they stall, and not because they can't, but because being as part of a team, that's the beauty of it, I think, because when you're having a bad day, you know, there's other people to help you. You know, if you're not so good at doing the back end boring stuff, then there's the support in that. If you don't want to do the account stuff, there's someone in that. So it allows you within the brand, I believe, to do the bit that you enjoy. You know, you're still very customer focused and enjoy that bit. That's why probably our partnership works well, because I can do the more boring work, and you can do the bit that you enjoy more at the front end. So it gives you that opportunity to do both. That's my opinion in it. Anyway, other stuff with Mr. Barbers then. So outside of work, like you spoke about, we discuss how we try to become a team and almost a little bit of a family, not within the brand. And I think we're trying to do a lot more community-based stuff now, and something that definitely comes to mind that we've just done recently that I think is worth talking about, especially as yourself. Well, me, you, and Carl, who's not here today, the only one who's done all three of them, is the 100K walk. We do it for charity. We try and invite customers along. We try and get as many barbers along as possible. This year we done it differently. So this year we had a 25K, a 50K, and 100K. And we pick some of the hardest terrain around the UK, the Peak District last time, and it's a great thing for charity, and it always ends up being a success. So how did you find that? I know you've just done that recently. How did you find it all?
It's something that I think it's worth saying at the top of it. It's great. It's great money. We've done. So the first year was dementia. Second one was men's mental health. This year we've just done a child's cancer charity. So first and foremost, it's great that we get to make money for those companies, those charities. Sorry. But actually, if I'm being selfish, the reason I love doing it is because of it's all that sort of, it's the bonding, really, isn't it? Like it's walking around for 24 hours with obviously across like landscapes. As everywhere you look, it's a postcard. I mean, we did Cotswolds was the first year, then we did the Jurassic Coast, and this year we just done Peak District. So beautiful parts of the country, and something that is worth doing it in itself, just to see the whole place. But the reason that I get excited about it, the reason I genuinely look forward to it, even though it's horrible, is the bonding. It's the spending that much time with somebody, and you can understand now, obviously to a far lesser extent, but you can understand how people do you bond through, I don't want to call it trauma, but like hardship, you know, the idea of becoming close to somebody. And I feel as though that is what gets me going. You know, that's what gets me excited about the next year every time. It's also a nice bit of a challenge as well. It's nice to know. I think I hit 30, and I think I definitely was a bit like, I just want to do things to make sure I can still do them, you know? And I think that it's not an easy job walking that. I think I'm probably built a bit better for it than you. I think that I weigh less and
Jacob won't say, but he probably finds it the easiest out of us all each time, right? Maybe. You know, he's a little bit frustrating. We get to about 75, 80K, and by that stage, a lot of us, our bodies have given up, and he's still bouncing around, and it's a little bit frustrating seeing him jumping over the, little.
I think it's a mental game, isn't it? I think that there's a degree of physicality to it, and there's a degree of training that you need to do. But I think it's a mental game, and I think that for me, I call myself I'm a professional small talker. I think we all are. I mean, like our money, our bread and butter is effectively in conversation. So if you can chat for 24 hours solid without just sounding, I mean, it turns into drivel, doesn't it? Like towards the end of it, you're not making any sense. But I do feel as though it's like having that kind of like mental sort of fortitude or whatever, just to keep on going is the real secret, I think.
And the thing I love about it the most is that when we're doing it, we all say this is, you know, it gets to the point where it gets very tough, you know, going up all the different hills and the different terrains. That's certainly a challenge. And we all kind of, well, not so much Carl, for instance, say this is the last time I ever do it. And then every year we get him back on, and then hopefully I'm going to be working on him, and he'll be doing it hopefully next year. He's going to comment on this, say no way, but we'll see.
It was funny though, because there was that banter. Like you two obviously always had that kind of thing, and it got towards the end of this most recent one, and he was like, it's just me and him, and he went, and I was like, and obviously towards the end you are like, fuck this is rubbish. And so I was like, absolutely. I was like, yeah, I can't be asked to do this again. And then you get over the line that, you know, when the sun comes up, obviously you feel back alive. And we got over the finish line. I remember hearing you go, what, next year, Carl? And he just went, no, we're not doing it. And you went, yeah, you are. And then I think he was just like, no, me and Jacob said we're not doing it. And you went, you're doing it. And I went, yeah, okay, sure. You know, like, and immediately, again, it's been a people pleaser. Like, I'll do it because somebody's asked me to do it. Obviously, I'm very grateful. Like I've already said, a lot of the stuff I'm most proud of is stuff that I didn't necessarily want to do. Initially. But
growth in the comfort. There's always
100%.
growth in the comfort.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
And I love how we all come away and everyone's, you know, struggles at the finish line. And I love it how then that builds connection with someone. Almost, I know it gets a bit deep, but for the rest of their life, they'll always have that moment where they think about, oh, I remember when I was 80k in here, it was 3 a.m. and I had that conversation with it. And when you go through them hard, tough times together, you think about that. And when you get to the end of the year or years to come even, because when things are hard, they'll stay in your mind a lot more and you always create that bond and that connection. That's what I love about it. So, you know, 3 or 4 months later, you haven't met someone that, or maybe at the Christmas do, you've automatically got that connection with, you're right. And you can discuss the walk and all the rest of it. And it creates moments. And I think that's what I love about it.
You're absolutely right.
And doing that as a team, and hopefully next year it gets bigger again.
But for me, obviously, I think you'll say quite a lot that like there's always value in being outside of your comfort zone, and I agree with that. Even though I would say I hate that in the sense that I am very much a creature of habit. Is why I've been able to again do this job successfully for so long. Is because it is just repetition. I think, isn't it? It's every half an hour, whatever it is. Like it's the same sort of thing, but there's a degree of therapy which I haven't talked about really. But I think that you get, without sounding like a wanker, like you get as much out of it as the customer does, in the sense that like it's therapeutic. Isn't it? Talking is therapeutic. So one of the reasons I love my job so much, and one of the reasons I've not felt the need to pay for a therapist, is because I get therapy every half an hour. Do you know what I mean? Like you get to talk about things, and it's not about dumping all of your worries of the world onto the customer, but there is value in talking about stuff. And I feel as though, historically speaking, certainly from a man's perspective, I don't think it was as cool to talk about having bad times or anything like that. And so the idea of if a customer gets my chair now and says, I'm just feeling crap, you're far more capable to deal with that and say, oh, me too, mate. Or like, I know how you feel, as opposed to, you're a pussy. You know?
It also makes you feel like, it also makes you feel like...
I'm not sure that's really not got anything to do with what we're talking about, but it was worth mentioning.
No, but it's also good. It gives you a confidence boost. It's like, oh, you actually confide in me.
Yeah.
That means like, shit, I'm actually doing a good job. Because if my customer's willing to sit down and rant to me and let me get on with, the usual trim. It makes you feel like, I'm doing something that's helping people and making them look good.
I suppose came off the whole walking thing.
Yes.
But then I don't know, apart from I know that obviously you've done shows and stuff. I've not done any of that. I don't like being centre of attention, ironically.
But you're booked up in November, I'm not.
You just better than the timekeeper, man. But for me, I feel as though that is one of the nice things. And it's something I'd like to do more of. But again, you need people like Mark, or you need people that can actually organise something. Because otherwise, I can say as much as I want that I want to do more with the company. But it's up to me to present that to the right people and actually go through with it. The Christmas party every year is a small miracle, because it sounds like such a mission to do. Like, in terms of setting it all up, kind of getting it all ready, and I'll keep saying about Carl and Paul how they do such a great job in doing all these things. But again, that's why it's great to be part of Mister, because it feels like it's a big family. So you can say, shall we go do a fitness weekend or a golf thing like that? You can present the ideas as opposed to it being some weird little microclimate. It feels bigger than just one shop, is what I'll say.
Yeah, and the awards night, I think it helps us celebrate the hard work that everyone's done throughout the year, right? We have Barber of the Year, Young Barber of the Year, and
that would be weird in one shop, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the bigger you get, the more the bigger the team, the bigger the community, the more of these things that you can do, and then the more enjoyment comes from it, because it's different to just going to work, going home, and just repeating forever. That you can look forward to these things
100%.
that break up the working day as such.
I've only met you 3-4 times.
Yes, mostly the Christmas.
This is probably the first time properly, but it doesn't feel like.
No, it just feels.
I'm interviewing you. It just feels so natural, and I've just picked up on that now. Actually,
I think we haven't had that much FaceTime, but actually, it's not.
But the energy's there, and
100%.
We know we've got stuff to talk about.
And also probably a lot in common. But like the idea of if it was just one little shop, which don't get me wrong, there are pros and cons to all of this. But the pros of being part of a bigger thing is the massive network that you get from it. I think that's brilliant. And I feel like it would be just, like I said, it'd be weird if there was a Christmas party where one of 4 barbers gets Barber of the Year, one of 4 barbers gets trim of the year or whatever.
Doesn't really quite work.
So that's what I love about this.
So just concluding then, I know you've got a big, personally, you got your wedding coming up. So that's exciting for you.
That is very exciting,
and what is next? So I guess wedding and work-wise.
Wedding, I think
more of the
me,
same.
For me, for the longest time, we've been engaged for 2 years. So it's like, you put everything in terms of financially, you put everything else kind of like, we're not going to worry about that because we've got the wedding. Worry about that. Wedding, the housing stuff doing it. Like, so there's stuff that needs doing, but after the wedding,
frees you up a little bit.
It does feels like it frees you up a bit, even though it's not. Like, the wedding's not been that restricting, but I feel like in your brain you are just like, that's happening. Anything after that is
I can't deal with anything now until that's done.
I've always wanted to get another shop. I feel like that would be the natural progression for myself. It will take more whatever less wanky term would be other than self-development or whatever, but like there's going to have to be an element of me changing my brain even more to kind of, because the more shops you have, the less you found this, haven't you? The more shops you have, the fewer customers you'll have in a weird way. You can't have that same.
You just can't do it all, right?
You can't do it all. You know, you can't be there at 7:30 in the morning for Matey Boy when you've got to be in Braintree or which I mean, like they use that as somewhere far away. But like you need to you can't spread yourself too thin. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to come away from that. But yeah, I think I'd probably just like to carry on doing what I'm doing, really, in a boring sense.
Yeah, you're doing it would be worrying if you weren't doing a very good job, but you're doing a good job at it, right? So more of the same is going to hopefully lead to a positive, happy life.
But
right?
it's just about trying to get enough people around you that you can grow. And I think that because I'm naturally somebody who doesn't like growing, and I should get myself, but like physically, but like the idea that like if you get all the apprentices in and if they do really well and they're exactly like you, then like it makes sense to just get another shop because obviously you've got too many staff in this one. Do you know what I mean? So if it all works properly, that's what I'd like to do.
Perfect. So to summarize then, I think we've had a great podcast today. We've gone through a lot of different topics, the journey of Jacob over the 10 years. We've talked about apprenticing, how the barbering industry's changed, management. We got a bit deep with certain things, owning shops. So yeah, I'm excited to get the podcast out. Jacob, if anyone wants to follow you, although we discussed that you don't do much social media, but you are on Jacob Gallally.
Yeah, Jay Gallally, on Instagram, and obviously Miss Barbers Angel Hill, I should say, is that one, and Thetford, on my our two shops, whatever. But yeah, I would say that's probably better to follow that than anything else.
Yeah, I think if you're going to follow someone, you're probably better off following Orbs. You're more of the social girl, right? Where's everyone going to find you, Orbs?
Trims by Orbs.
Yeah, she's straight in there. She's she's better at it than us.
Okay, guys, that was episode 2 of the Mr. Barbers podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks very much.
You can find all our social medias down below in the description, and we will see you on the next one.